Okay, let's begin with installing our Stripe. So what we're going to do is go to pods, open the pod file, and here I'm going to put a pod, and this is going to be Stripe. Also, we are going to install a Llama Fire because we are going to send HTTP requests, and this will help us to do it easily. So we say pod Llama Fire. All right, and let's open our terminal. I'm going to navigate where my project is. So it's the desktop, and this is called market. Check what I have here and say pod install. And this will take a few seconds to install Stripe. Current version is 16.06. And it also should install Llama Fire. So installing Llama Fire 4.2.8 version. Right, it's done installing. I'm just going to close my application and reopen again. So make sure that everything is set. Okay, and what we need to do is to set up our Stripe account now, Stripe keys here. So before I can do that, I'm going to set up something in my constants. So let's go at the top here. I'm going to put a enum here. I'm going to call this constants. And we're going to have static let public, let's call this publishable key, and this is going to be equals to string, and then we say static let base URL string is going to be equals a string, and then say static let, let's call this default currency is equals, and this is a string as well, and finally say static let, and let's call this default description, and this is going to be equals to string. So on my public key, I'm going to grab this from my Stripe account. Let me just go there. Here it is. Let's go to my developer, API keys, and let's copy my public key here. So I'm going to put this right here. The base URL, since I'm going to test everything on my local machine, and if you are using Node.js, then your local machine will be running on localhost at 3000 port. If you are using any other backend, once you run your backend in terminal or on the program itself, it's going to tell you what the local host is. So if you are following with Node.js, just go with terminal localhost and 3000 port. Default currency, let's put it USD for now. If you are in a different country or different currency, put whatever you want. Just make sure this currency exists. And then we have default description. I'm going to put purchase from market. Let's have this here. And once we have this, I can go to my app delegate. And here, remember, we have this function initialize PayPal. Since we no longer going to need this, I'm going to change this function. So let's go down here, which says initialize PayPal, and let's turn this to initialize Stripe. Okay, and I'm going to actually get rid of this PayPal code, and of course we need to call this function. Just copy and paste it here. So in this function, we are going to instantiate our Stripe. Before we can do that, we need to import it. So we say import Stripe. And if your pod installation worked properly, this would autofill and there shouldn't be any errors. So in order to initialize our Stripe, we say stp payment configuration, and I'm going to access the shared, and we are going to give this a publishable key, which is equals to, and we can access our constants that we just created and say we want the publishable key here. And this will instantiate our Stripe with the publishable key that our Stripe has provided us. The next thing is going to be creating a class that is going to be taking care of our Stripe payments. So let's go to our model, select Algolia service, Command N to create a new Swift file. Click next. I'm going to call mine, let's call this my Stripe, let's call this just Stripe service or client, Stripe client. Okay, and here, of course, we need to import Stripe. Then we need to import Aloma Fire. And we can create our class. And this is going to be called Stripe client. Let's say static let shared. And we're going to share shared client is equals, and we say that this is Stripe client. And once we do this, we're going to have also a variable, which is our base URL string. And this is going to be a string, is going to be optional, and by default is going to be equals to nil. And I'm going to write a variable here that is going to get our base URL, and this is going to return a URL. And the URL we are going to return will be based on our URL string. So we say if let URL string is equals to self dot base URL string, let URL equals, and we're going to create a URL using our string, and this is going to be our URL string that we have set. And if this is correct, we are going to just put curly braces and say return URL, so that we have created this URL and we are returning it. Otherwise, I'm going to say else. We just say, let's put a fatal error. So this will crash our application because we don't want to continue if we don't have access to base URL, because this is where our application is going to check for the payments. So once we have this, I'm going to create one function that is going to check our payment. So we'll take our payment and pass it to our backend. So I'm going to call this func create and confirm payment. And let's pass our token, which is a type of STP token. And also we want to pass the amount we want to charge the client. So say amount is an integer. And remember, this is going to be in cents, not in currency, normal currency. It's going to be times 100. And then once this charge is done, we want to be notified if the transaction was successful or not. So we say completion, and we're going to have a callback. And our callback is going to pass an error, which is a type of error, and it's an optional. This doesn't return anything, so we put a void there. All right. Okay, let's stop here for this lecture, and in next lecture we're going to continue here. Just quickly sum up what we have done is we have installed our Alamo Fire and the Stripe. Then we have initialized it in our app delegate. So as soon as you start your project, your application starts, we're going to initialize the Stripe. And just in our constants, we put some default keys that we are going to use: the localhost, the publishable key, currency, and purchase from market as our default description. And also we are creating this Stripe client like we have done with Algolia service that takes care of our Algolia things. Our Stripe client is going to be taking care of our payments. So we will call this function whenever we want to charge a client. We will pass the credit card token that our API will generate, and we just pass the amount, how much we want to charge this specific card. And this function should contact our backend and Stripe, and they are going to take care of the payment part.